Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another epic segment on Adobe Express. My name is Voodoo Val, and I'm going to be your host this morning, and I'm joined by my new friend, Justin Nguyen. Justin, how are you this morning? Are you ready? Are you raring to go?
I'm doing good. See, I'm on the East Coast, so it's around lunchtime. I'm excited. I'm happy. I'm getting excited to just talk about Snapchat and headlines and everything like that. So,
I'm pumped too. If yesterday was any indication, this is going to be jam-packed with epic knowledge and awesome stuff. Hello to everyone who is watching in the live chat. It's good to see you all. I see Michelle and Sean and Clever, Wade Acuff, the one and only. It's great to see all of you folks. Thank you for joining us. We're going to kind of just dive into it here. What do you got planned for us today, Justin?
yeah. So yesterday, if you watched the stream or if you watched the video on demand on YouTube or wherever, you saw that we went over two different thumbnails. So it was this one as well as this one. We went through like sort of the design side of why we picked some of the colors, why we moved things around. This is why this guy has some bunny ears on and is leaning in, looking like he's whispering into this other guy's a little bunny whisper, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I also made this third one today, just so that we could have another topic to talk about, because today is a little bit less sort of design heavy and more psychological, as well as talking more about this little guy down here, the Snapchat headline. And so this is very similar to the psychology that you would have for a YouTube headline or title, a TikTok caption, an Instagram caption, things of that nature. But again, the main reason that this is important, especially for Snapchat shows and YouTube channels, is because it all increases your click-through rate. And so the example that I'll give is one of the thumbnail that we did last week's Snapchat show. We had the same thumbnail, so it was the same photo for all four tiles, is what they call them on Snapchat. And all we did was change the headline. And from that headline change, two of them have so Snapchat's scale for click-through rate is 0 to 1.5. So 1.5 being the number one, like getting the most amount of clicks above average for your click-through rate for your thumbnail. And so for the four variations, we had one that said her guess was bad, another one that said we ruined her graduation, another one that said her guess was so bad, and then another one that said you should see what she guessed this logo was ... So from those four options, Val, which do you think did the best?
I feel like the last one that was like, you'll never believe XYZ, I feel like, but I would love to know if that's true or not. Is that the one that did the best? Because that's the one I would click on.
Yeah. I wish I had this. I had it like on here, but so the one that did the best was her guess was so bad.
Oh,
and
okay.
The one that you guessed that you thought did the best actually was the worst performing one.
Really?
Which is very interesting, because I thought the same thing when I was writing these headlines. Actually, let me see if I can move this over here so you guys can see some of these analytics.
I wonder if it's because that title seems the most like clickbaity. And I wonder if people have been, because like talking about like the psychology behind the wording and creating these, and maybe also getting into the experiences that viewers have with other channels and other, forms of content. I wonder if that's the one that they thought might be, not going to show them that content, because that can happen sometimes with clickbait kind of titles and things. And the other ones were more straightforward. I wonder.
I agree with what you were talking about. And I think the other caveat to that is, again, what I talked about yesterday, a lot of this is trial and error, and we don't necessarily know until we put it out there.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't realize when you're looking at some of the top creators out there in the world, they're constantly changing not just thumbnails, but titles. Like Mr. Beast will change his title if the video doesn't hit the like within the first hour, if it doesn't hit his required views or whatever it may be, he has backups of titles to go out and test to see if he can increase that click-through rate, retention, whatever that may be. And
Gotcha.
a lot of people don't realize this in this world. They're just like, oh, let me just try one thing. Hopefully it does really well, and then kind of go from there. So that's from that mindset. Now let's go and talk through like coming up with a headline for this this thumbnail right here. And again, just for context, basically this video is a TikTok that we repurposed into a Snapchat show. And it's of us going on UCF's campus and asking students one question. If they got the question right, they would win an Easter egg. And the Easter egg was filled with anywhere between $1 to $20.
Okay.
And so this guy won, and he got to pick his Easter basket, and he got $20, which was the top prize. And so what he says at the end of the video is, I'm going to go to Chipotle, and I'm going to bring my girlfriend with me. And
Awesome.
so his girlfriend is the lady with the hat on. And then the girl's arm is one of the talent from our videos handing him the Easter egg basket. So we need to find a way to incorporate that whole scene into about 60 characters or less. And typically I like to aim for two lines. You can go up to 3 lines, or you can do even 1 line. But I think that 2 line gives you enough room to kind of tell the full story, but also not taking up too much space at the bottom. Because again, this is only about a fifth of the full space that you have. So sort of my process when looking at this is when we're going in here, again, this would be in your Snap Studio if you were doing it on there, but this is just so that we can have the placeholder and see how the whole thumbnail looks together. I like to do things that are not super clickbaity, but make you think what is going to happen. Okay. So for instance, if we look back at the video that we did last week, again, it's a video of a girl kind of like groaning, or like the screen capture of a girl groaning. And then the best thumbnail was her guess was so bad. So for me, I'm thinking something along the lines, and Val, let me know what you think about this sort of headline of
won't believe what he did with 20. That's a good one too. That's
So here's one option. And again, if you're in the chat, feel free to ask questions, leave your comments if you like it. If you don't like it, please be as honest and transparent. We love honesty here.
But let's get some ideas thrown in the chat. What would you folks do for a headline here? And what's your thought process as you create your own content? How would you title it? I wonder if, because you make like 4 of these, I don't know if this would be too like spoilery, but I wonder if, since we know that he used that $20 to take his girlfriend to Chipotle, you could say something like he won a free date or something like that, and make you wonder, like, what does that even mean? And it's like, there's an Easter basket and stuff like that. And, how does that figure in? And what is this? But I don't know. I'm not, making Snap Show titles all the time, but I'm kind of trying to put my brain into that mindset that you said, like, how do we used the actual thumbnail art to create a trailer of sorts for the content. You kind of have to do the same thing with the headline, right?
Exactly.
Encompass it all into a short, catchy phrase or sentence in a way that kind of makes you wonder what's happening and also gives you information, but there's still enough in there that someone wants to click on it and find out.
Yeah. So I'm just going to keep a bunch of these up here, whatever ideas that we have, just so that we can keep reiterating on them. Okay. So I like your idea of like winning a free date, right? It's something interesting. But something that I want to kind of like challenge that is, how can we add maybe a little bit more to that, where there's something that the viewer can play along with. So what I mean by that is a lot of these videos, especially again, I talk about Mr. Beast a lot because he's kind of like the king of like click-through rate and things of that nature, right? A lot of times you watch his videos so that you can play along with him, right? Or whatever is going on, right? So when it's one of his videos where it's like, if whatever you can fit in the circle, I'll buy you. You're thinking in your head, oh my God, he just walked by the MacBooks. I would have grabbed that MacBook and put it in there. And you want to watch that video because you're like kind of challenging the person that's doing the actual activity in the video. Like, oh, I feel like I can do better than that, right?
Like, what would I do?
Exactly. It's kind of like sports, right? We're always sitting on the couch where we're like, oh, I could have done that way better than that person who gets paid millions of dollars that's doing that, right? But that's why we watch, because we want to feel that we're part of this. So how do we change this a little bit of he won a free date into something that like adds in that the viewer can play along in it a little bit?
I'm thinking, I wonder if asking a question as a title, does that work? And does that happen often? Like where a headline is asking a question rather than being a title? And if you have experience with that, does something like that actually work?
So we have asked questions in the past, but for at least for us, it's never worked out being the best. So again, a lot of the times we think what we think is best isn't actually what's best. And it's very hard, especially on like your first go, right? Like, that's why like I try to reiterate on these things as much as possible. I mean, a question could work. Well, what did you have in mind?
Like, would you have spent the prize on ... Or, like some sort of question, it's kind of hard for me to come up with it on the fly, but some kind of question that would insinuate like he won something. Is this what you would have done with your prize money? Something to that effect. Because then it's like, okay, there's the winning of prizes occurring in this video. And would you have done this thing that we're going to reveal to you with your prize money if it had been you? Sort of. But I would have to like put some thought into how to get that into a catchy phrase.
I like that. I mean, I think you're hitting on a lot of good points, right? So it's like $20, free date. What would you do with this money? My hit back to the what would you do with this money type of headline is how does that play with the rest of the thumbnail?
Yeah, like how does that show? It doesn't have any of the other elements as far as what's happening there, which I feel like the other two kind of do, because there's, he's there and then you have his girlfriend in the scene and this woman that's handing him the prize. And so the free date kind of goes into like, you're maybe kind of wondering, according to the thumbnail, what exactly is happening and how this visual is going to play out. And then you won't believe what he did with $20 makes you, for me personally, it makes me wonder, is that what his prize is, and are there other prizes, and how did he win it? Like I want to know those things from the video. But I feel like you're right on the money there with like the question is interesting, but only because you and I behind the scenes know what the video is about and we know the outcome. And so how do you formulate? That's another thing too, is like, creating the content in a way that draws people in a way that can be interesting to outside people who have no context of what the video is, which I feel like could probably be difficult for some people when you already know what's in the video. But how do you, kind of keep that mystique with tiny bit of information given out in a way that makes people wonder? I feel like it's like making a book cover or making a movie poster, or you know what I mean? And you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but we do all the time.
Look, you have like less than a second, right, to get someone's attention when they're scrolling up and down on any social media feed, right? And you've got your title and your thumbnail to catch that attention and make sure that person clicks through. And so for me, here's what I'm thinking for this headline is
Also, I see some new folks filing into the chat. It's good to see you, Mervin. Hello. I see General Kenobi. I also see Eng Ahmed. And there's a question in the chat saying, are there courses for Adobe Premiere Pro? Yes, indeed. If you check out the Adobe Creative Cloud YouTube channel, or head over to behance.net/live, if you're looking for Premiere Pro courses, absolutely 100% we have those. Let me know if there's anybody in the chat who has any questions, or if any of the discussion here today is kind of inspiring some problem solving or thoughts for you and your content. I would love to know how many of you folks are making thumbnails for your own content, and what is your approach? Do you do this sort of thing where you're creating like a trailer of sorts of visual information for your YouTube thumbnails or your Snapchat thumbnails and so forth? Or are you creating almost like more of a book cover type thing that's like a piece of art all on its own to show off design you're doing? Or let me know what kind of videos you're making, what kind of thumbnails do you need for those videos, and how do you approach that? OC May, welcome in. It's good to see you. Thanks for popping in.
What's going on to everyone that's popping in?
Won the best gift for his girlfriend. I love it.
So here's my thought process behind this is we're talking about a gift, right? So then it piques the intrigue of the person that's glancing by of like, okay, what's the gift, right? And then we're including the best gift. So it's like, okay, what is this amazing gift? And for college students, I mean, a free trip to Chipotle is pretty damn good, right? I'm not sure if I can say damn, but it's pretty good. for a lot of college students, right? That's like the best thing in the world, free food, right? We're putting the word girlfriend because you're obviously adding some context to who this person is right here. And then putting the word won. So he won something. So you're like, okay, what did he have to do to win this prize? And so that's my sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 word title that I think would do really well. Again, with Snapchat, we would come up with probably 3 more of these to play around and see which one did the best. But I think this is a pretty solid piece of work that we've worked on together about.
Awesome. I feel like we teamworked this, and I would say it's probably split like, 90-10, but but I came in with commentary and we worked it out. I feel like I've contributed. We've got Sean Kosel in the chat saying that his thumbnails for his projects typically just say like what he did, like the project he's working on. So for today, he created a thumbnail for backyard photography. And I would assume, Sean, that you include some of your work in there. I'd love to know, are your thumbnails like kind of jam-packed with information, or are they kind of minimalist? And I'd love to know your thoughts on that as well, Justin, when it comes to creating thumbnails and or creating thumbnails for different kinds of content, as far as how much information you put onto the thumbnail. And we did go over this yesterday where we looked at like before and after of the evolution of thumbnails. Is there an amount of information that is too much or too little for a thumbnail? Because we are seeing them small, when we create them, it's like a large graphic piece that we're creating, but a lot of people might be looking at them on their phones and stuff like that. So there's different sizes and variations people are seeing. Is there like a limit for you personally where you're like, this is too much, and I should cut back? Or how does that work?
Yeah. So when we were first starting with these Snapchat shows, the one thing before I dive into that is this is like the most annoying thing to hear as a creator, but it is very true that it does depend on the type of content that you create at the same time, right? If you're someone like a Matt Diavella and you're more of a minimalist type of creator, then it doesn't make sense for you to have all these bright colors on your thumbnail, or like having people with like word text and things on your thumbnail, right? And a super long title, right? It probably makes a little bit more sense because it fits your brand to have a short title with like maybe a few books in your thumbnail. It would like shot very, very well. So I think it depends on the type of content that you create. But what I would say to that is most people, I would say, probably fall away from the minimalist and more towards I'm looking for the bright colors or something similar to something like this, just
Gotcha.
due to the majority of the content that is usually uploaded to places like Snapchat, YouTube, wherever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to your point of like, do I like to use a lot of stuff in there? We previously, the way that we used to do these thumbnails was we would just do the cutouts of these people. So this background wouldn't be here. It would be like a solid color. And
Okay.
what we would do is kind of, we would just take whatever color that we thought fit that was like super bright. So for instance, with this one, maybe we do like, I don't know, a green that kind of like pops. I know it doesn't look amazing, right? But this is, again, just off the top of the dome. We would do something that would pop. So to hopefully draw your attention to it. And then maybe add some like icons here and there.
Like emojis or...
Yeah, exactly. Emojis maybe for this one would have like an Easter egg here, like a $20 bill or something like that. And it seems those didn't do very well. And I think that the reason for that is it's just kind of like too much is going on. Right. It's like the I'm from Orlando, so I see this all the time. But if you've ever been to Orlando and you've driven by the theme parks, you've probably seen some of the like the souvenir shops, right? And it's like a little too overwhelming for a lot of people, right? Because you've got like fake Mickeys over here, you've got fake Minions over here. You don't know what's real, what's not real. And there's all these different sort of prices all around, and you end up not buying anything because it all looks cool, but it's just kind of like sensory overload. Right. And unless you're taking the time to sort through and look through everything, chances are you're just going to leave with nothing. And that's sort of how I feel with thumbnails. Put everything that is needed and take away everything that you don't necessarily need.
Gotcha.
And try to make it tell the encompassing story as quickly as possible. Because if I have to try to understand and correlate what this Easter egg is doing with this $20 bill, with this guy and this girl, with this headline, with this Easter basket, it's probably too much for my brain to comprehend in the half second that this thumbnail pops up on my timeline on whatever platform. And I'm probably not going to stay and watch it. So that's the mindset that you have to understand when you're thinking of creating this.
So my takeaway from this is very much like there's no really right or wrong answer because content can vary, but some key points to keep in mind for all of you folks watching would be, what does your thumbnail say about your brand? Are those cohesive? Do they match up together? You know, does it fit with the rest of your content? And you can kind of judge how busy, for lack of a better term, a thumbnail is supposed to be depending on like what you're actually presenting and what your brand says. And then I suppose, you know, no unnecessary information. And you don't want to get that, you know, walking through the souvenir road sensory overload of just too much happening. Use as much as you need to tell a story and get the point across. Anything like above that could be just maybe annoying when you're scrolling through and there's just so much happening. So you don't want to overwhelm your viewers. You want to lead them in. So keep it to the point and on brand is kind of what I'm hearing. And I feel like that's a really good rule of thumb, because I feel like I've seen people who make thumbnails and none of their thumbnails are really on brand for them. And it kind of gives the viewer a different idea about what they may find, you know? So you wouldn't have an action poster for you know, rom-com movie, you know, you wouldn't have that.
Exactly. Right. So it's like, you want to like, because the other thing too is, you want to make sure that when people click through, they're getting what they like, getting the payoff, right? Like imagine if you bought something, let's say you bought, I don't know, I just have a networking book on my desk. Let's say you bought a networking book, but then the whole context of the book was a rom-com, like you were saying. You'd be like, what the heck am I reading? And you're going to take that book, throw it away. And in the context of like video, you would click off to the next video because you're like, what am I watching? And then that's going to ruin your watch time, right? So you have to make sure that, yes, you want as many people to click on your video as possible, but you also want to make sure that the people that are clicking on your video will watch your video to the end, because that's going to signify to whatever social platform that your video is great. And that's when the algorithm gets on your side.
So we are coming to a close here pretty quick. We probably got about a minute left before we have to take off. Thank you all so much for joining us. First of all, I feel like I've learned a lot from you, Justin, about, the psychology behind how to title things and how to convey a message in very short form, very small amounts of text or imagery. And is there any parting words that you would like to leave with our audience? And maybe where they can see any more of your content? I know that we have the Declassified media link down in the description below, but yeah, any parting words?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to connect with me on like a personal level, check out like my LinkedIn. It's just Justin Nguyen, and you should find a guy with a backwards hat as a profile picture. Just send me a personalized invite because I do get a bunch of them. Just saying like you found me from Adobe Live, and I'll connect with you there. More than happy to answer any follow-up questions. And then also, like my last piece of advice here is, again, a lot of this thumbnail stuff is on a content basis. So find the competitors in your space, see what videos are doing well for them, and see what they've put in their thumbnail and title there. And then don't copy it, of course, right? But take inspiration from it because that'll give you a good starting point. You don't want to be the minimalist person trying to copy Mr. Beast because those are two very different audiences that those thumbnails and titles are hitting.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. That's a great tidbit of information. We do have to take off, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. But stay tuned because there's always awesome content happening here. And we will talk to you next time. Adios, folks.
See ya.